From the book 5 Classic Muslim Slave Narratives, the narrative of Selim Aga. He says, surrounded by some beautiful mountain scenery and situated between Darfur and Abyssinia, is a small valley going under the denomination of Tegla or Tegli. To this valley I stretch forth my affection, giving it the endearing appellations of my native home and fatherland. It was there that I was born, there that I received the fond looks of a loving mother, and there that I set my feet for the first time upon the world full of cares, trials, difficulties, and danger. Tegla is exposed to excessive heat of the burning sun in the seasons that can be divided into two parts, the rainy and the dry season. In the rainy season, agriculture is carried on by the farmer at a very small scale. When the corn begins to change color, the rainy season declines. The rain is over, the dry season is on. Many begin to reap the fruits of their labor. The social nature of the people among themselves, that they exchange services with each other. A large concourse of them assemble in the field, and in a very short time the harvest is taken in. The day of shearing is generally ended with dancing, of which amusement they are very fond. The dry season carries off all traces of water and scorches all the grass and green trees. It leaves the poor native nothing to depend upon but his industry. Money is not valued. The religion is paganism mixed with several Mohammedan rites. Fasting is also very strictly observed by the devotees, 1 month in the year being allotted for that purpose. The houses in the valley of Tegla are built in a style peculiar to themselves. Every room is built about 10 or 20 yards from each other, of round form with a thatch roof. Under part of the rooms are built of stone and mud. My father's house consisted of 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a mill room, and a goat room. The junior male member of the family are employed in taking care of the flock. The dress among the higher class is a long, wide gown reaching to the ankles, and wide open sleeves, and sandals. The lower class again, which they tie around their body over their shoulder, while length only reaches to their knees. Their food is entirely confined to Indian corn, served up in different ways. They seldom kill their goats for butcher meat. Having given short account of the customs of the native country, I shall now relate my own history. Youth is the period of true happiness. All trials and difficulties seem to live in oblivion. Being the oldest boy, my pride was raised to no small degree when I beheld my father preparing a farm for me. This event filled my mind with grand anticipation of leaving the goats to my brother. While my father was making these preparations, I had constant charge of the goats, and being accompanied by 2 other boys who resided near my father's house, we wandered many miles from home. It was while in these rambles with my companions that I became the victim of the slaveholder. While tending our flock between 2 hills, we spied 2 men shaping their course towards us, inquired whether we had any goats for them, a term quite common in the country. Our reply, of course, in the negative, but they nearly used the craft in order to deprive us of suspicion. Myself being nearest to them, I was firmly secured in their hands and forced away. On showing symptoms of resistance, one of them procured a green twig and whipped me till the blood was falling down my leg. After proceeding some miles, we came to a house where I was tied with ropes on my hands and foot and laid down to rest. Next morning before dawn, my cruel master took ropes off my legs and, setting me on a certain direction, desired me to walk, while he followed with a large whip. This was rather harsh treatment for a child of 8 years of age. We continued our journey to the middle of the day, when we arrived at a village. At the village of Tegla, my inhumane master disposed of me and returned home. On entering the house of my new master, what was my astonishment on seeing an old acquaintance there, a girl with whom I had interviewed a few weeks previous. The poor creature had fallen into the hands of the enemy only a few days before myself. This girl, whose name was Medina, admonished me, telling me to do whatever I was desired, assuring me that the white man would not care for taking our lives. We were well secured in iron chains. A short time after this, a caravan left the village of Tegla. With this caravan, our master joined. After a day's journey, we arrived at a small village, where he was disappointed in his object, the disposing of us into another's hand. He had no recourse but to return to his home country. Arriving at that village, we received the heart-rending intelligence that our friends had been in search of us, and were frustrated, having heard that we were taken to a distant land. Another caravan was soon equipped for a further distance. This was a 4-day journey to a large town called Kordofan, under the jurisdiction of Pacha of Egypt. We stayed a few days at this place, shared unfeigned hospitality of the people who were uncommonly kind. During our stay, Medina and I were taken to the camps of Turks, where we were put through different exercises. The first thing they were desired to do was to show our tongues, and then our teeth, and then the rest rest of our limbs underwent a serious examination. In 2 days we reached the point of our destination, and there our master disposed of us to an Arab. We stayed with 2 or 3 days. From an Arab we fell into the hands of a Turk. The Turkish gentleman found work for everybody. The testimony I can bear to his good character is that he was one of the cruelest men in existence. My office was what might be called a general house servant. The duties of waiting tables, washing dishes, making coffee, and waiting on orders. Medina was made an assistant cook for a short time, but had the misfortune to see her sold to another Turk. Thus I was left alone to suffer. To mention all the cruelties I suffered at the time would be quite needless. My master, on whom I continually attended, punished every small fault with great severity. One time, being sent by my mistress, my master interrogated me on my return with "Where have you been?" began to thrash me. Another time I made coffee by his order, happened to make a few cups more than was required. I said nothing at the time, but after I was in bed, got a hold of a horsewhip, coming upon me unaware, thrashed me till I was quite speechless. In Kordofan, the houses were all 1 story high. My master was married, had 2 children, 2 female slaves, 2 male, and myself. The circumstance which relieved me of my present master. One evening when the sun was going down, everything assuming the quietude of the eastern calm, a certain Arab came to our house, with whom I was desired to go and fetch some soap. I left everything behind and went. Having arrived at the man's house, he asked my name and told me that I was his property. I merely answered his reply by a look. I had become quiet, regardless of my fate. My new master, whose name was Jubilee, was a native of Dongola. He was in the company of 2 others, named of Achmet and Mahomet. The youngest of the 2 was cruel, beating and torturing the slaves. Achmet was moderate. My master was quiet, resigned temper. Having gathered 6 of us, they now thought of starting for their native country. They procured 4 camels, a horse, and other necessities for traveling, keeping their course on the banks of the Nile. The journey occupied 10 days. During the middle of the day, we were so much overpowered by the heat, we were delayed on our journey. From the tediousness of our journey, we were glad to see Dongola. We stayed here for a short time to recruit our strength, and then proceeded to New Dongola along the riverbanks. A few days we saw home. The different masters separated, each taking their share of spoils. I was only a few days with my master in his home when I was purchased by Mahomet's father. Mahomet's father and mother were 2 aged persons and wished me to be companion to them while their sons followed his occupation. But their next-door neighbor expressed desire to keep me in their shop. I was accordingly sold to him. I did not like my new master, he often behaving cruelly to his slaves. His shop was one of the Dongola arcade. Besides myself, another young man of the name Salama graced the shop's door. Salama and I became great friends. But what was my singular astonishment on perceiving a female at the distance, whom I thought I knew? Whom should I see but my old friend Medina? Salama stood quiet and astonished when he heard her call me her brother. Medina took us to her master's house, but our time had been limited. We had to leave and get home, promising to return and see her again. This was never accomplished altogether, for Salama was sold soon after. I made out to pay another visit to Medina, and had a little more time to relate our respective histories. I found out that I was with my 7th master while she was only with her 5th. 2 or 3 days after, my master brought a man to the shop who carefully scrutinized me, and then I was desired to follow him as my future owner. Hamid Heather was the man's name, a native Berber. Hamid took me by the hand and led me through the streets of Dongola to a suburb town where his 2 sons were waiting to receive us. I was put into a room where 2 other slaves were sitting. Soon entered a conversation, the one boy and the other girl, the former from Darfur and the latter from Sennar. Our master was merely staying at his brother's for the purpose of gathering slaves, whose home was merely a month's journey away to Cairo. Before I left Angola, my old master Jubilee, having heard a traveling merchant had bought me, my character as being an excellent traveler, and mentioned several incidents to ratify the belief of my present master's mind. For this I was entrusted with one of the camels. We had to stay in Gorti for 3 months, during which time I was doing sawdry things. I was sent to live with a friend of my master who behaved very kindly. About 6 miles from Gorti, my master married a young woman whom I was soon taken to live. My master never returned back to Gorti till within a few days of leaving for Cairo. The slave ship landed in the season of at Gorti and took us all on board. We arrived at the first cataract of the Nile. Mr. busied himself looking for another ship. Our new ship was a small one. A fortnight elapsed. We landed near Cairo. Part 2 coming.